Hello, romance lovers. Today I have a story for you called Hello, I'm a Gardener. Don't forget to support this video with a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new interesting stories. Thank you for watching. She was tired and was about to leave when suddenly the tree behind her began to tease her with cries that nothing could cut it. Hearing this, the girl immediately threateningly held the huge scissors to the trunk, promising that if he yelped again, she would definitely cut something off. The tree obeyed. Shaking the dirt off her hands with displeasure, she thought with a dissatisfied face that she was already fed up with all this. The beauty sat down under a tree to rest, but suddenly remembered that she had been living in this place for 19 years. Her name was Shirabi, and she died 19 years ago. Her name was Lee Ji-hyun before. She was an ordinary student who was just taking her university entrance exam. From her past life, Shirabi remembers walking home from school and looking at her English test results on her phone. But suddenly, she hears the scream of another student who is crying because she failed the exam and will not be able to enter the university. Her friends, who have gathered around, reassure her that this time the exams have been made more difficult, which means the passing score should be lower. But the student does not stop crying. Ji-hyun didn't pay attention and continued walking across the road. She was upset that because of the stupid education system, children had to sweat for good grades. Suddenly, the girl notices the same student who failed the exam on the edge of the building's roof. A man at the foot of the building tries to stop her. Ji-hyun is worried about the girl's life, so she yells at her not to do it. Shirabi herself regrets interfering back then. She, stretching out her hands towards her, encourages the suicidal woman that the final results have not yet been published, and it is foolish to make hasty conclusions. The main character does not understand whether she acted this way because of moral principles or because of a sense of justice. Bursting into tears, the girl on the roof says that if her parents find out the results of the exam, something terrible will happen to her. Ji-hyun assures her that everything will be fine. Hoping to bring the girl to her senses, she says that she goes to the same school as her, bringing the name embroidered on her uniform as proof. Eventually, the suicidal woman hears from her classmate an offer to just go down and talk, to which she agrees. But suddenly her foot slips, causing the girl to fall from the roof down. At this moment, Ji-hyun, without knowing why, felt that she had to save this person. She screamed desperately, fearing for her life. The girl rushed forward and stretched out her arms, hoping to catch the suicide bomber who was about to touch the asphalt. However, she overestimated her capabilities. The body flying down crushed the savior herself, which is why she said goodbye to life. This was Shirabi's last memory from her past life. She sighs heavily and says that it's all useless. She gets up from the ground as the plant bombards her with questions about whether she will cut any more branches. The girl politely asks the tree to be quiet. Shirabi was reborn in a certain empire called Ventria, a very popular fantasy world where everyone is born with some kind of ability. The more this power is developed, the more powerful it will be, and the best in their field will be invited to serve the emperor. The main character's ability is to hear what plants are saying. She constantly developed it, as a result of which she became a recognized gardener. Shirabi ran to the house, opened the door, and right on the threshold, she plopped down on the floor from fatigue. But suddenly she notices a strange movement in the room, which makes her sit up and ask if there is anyone here besides her. The gardener notices a handsome young brunette who can't take his eyes off her. A guy whose legs are slightly translucent sits down next to a stranger and asks if she can really see him. Shirabi seemed to have swallowed her tongue. She didn't know who was in front of her, and she felt as strange as when talking to plants. But the girl understands that this stranger could be anyone, so she decided to defend herself. She threw berries from her bag right into his face. The boy screamed from the pain on his forehead where the berry had hit, and the gardener thought she had managed to defeat the uninvited guest. The young man began to get indignant because the main character let go of her hands and, like a ghost, approached her again. She became even more frightened than before and again poured berries at the stranger. Some time passes. Shirabi and the guy calmed down and decided to talk peacefully at the table. But the girl still reminds him that it's all his fault. Having received nothing in response from him, Shirabi finally decides to at least ask the stranger's name. The guy indifferently says that his name is Pierre, to which the gardener is indignant, saying that his name is too strange and asks to give his real Korean name. Shibari, setting an example by himself, affectionately introduces himself by the name Lee Hyun, after which he sternly asks to repeat exactly the same. Pierre asks again about the Korean name, and the girl says that she cannot understand why it is so difficult for him to say it. The young man admits that he has good reasons for not giving his real name. Noticing that same bag of berries on the table, he asks Shirabi for forgiveness so that those berries don't fly into his face again. The girl accepts the apology and takes the bag closer to herself. She asks Pierre who he is, a man or a spirit. The guy wanted to answer, but she interrupted him, arguing that he couldn't be a ghost because she could see him and touch him. Shirabi eventually asks if he is a living tree spirit, to which he readily agrees, clarifying that he is a spirit with amnesia. Pierre wanted to ask her to take care of him, but the gardener suddenly stood up from her seat and, sighing, said that she was wasting her time and left. The main character decided to continue doing her usual gardening chores. Pierre finds her, approaches her, and asks what the girl does. She gives an obvious answer. She works. The boy notices the branches that Shirabi is planting in pots and says that he thought that plant branches die if you cut them. The gardener says with a pleasant smile that if someone else cuts the branch, it will die. But if she does it, it will not. Suddenly, Pierre hears something strange. The girl asks one sapling to wake up quickly, because tomorrow he will go to a new good owner. Suddenly, the seedling sleepily says that it wants to sleep a little longer, which shocks the boy, who hears the voices of plants for the first time. Shirabi decides to use magic on the plant, which turns an ordinary dry branch into a beautiful green bush. Seeing this, the frightened Pierre cautiously asks what this place is and who she is. The girl tells him to read the sign near the house. After reading the sign, Shirabi Flower Garden, the boy instantly remembered that he was standing next to the best gardener of the Ventria Empire. The young man says that with such strong abilities, the heroine can work in the Imperial Palace and asks why she is still here. Shirabi says she gets job offers every week, but her small shop is her favorite. The girl adds that she did not go to work in a palace with a strict daily routine. She earns more when she works for herself. Staring at the sun, the gardener decided that while they waited for the rain, they would take a break. Shirabi quickly introduces Pierre to the work, handing him a pot with a bush, and tells him not to be afraid and not to stand there like a pillar. The guy clumsily picks up the pot, which makes the girl laugh a lot as a professional. The gardener thoughtfully notes that her new friend does not look like a spirit, not even noticing that he is not reflected in the window. At this moment, someone calls the girl from behind, which forces her to switch her attention from the guy to the buyer. But instead of greeting the client, Shirabi suddenly grabbed Pierre by the hand and ran into the house with him. Leaving a sign on the door that said, "Closed," the girl hid behind the closet, ordering the guy to be quiet. He still tried to find out from her what was going on, because no one could hear him anyway. The customer, who turned out to be an elegant old man, was desperately trying to get through to the store owner. He says that only she can solve the problem he came with, and promises to first double and then triple the fee for solving it. The gardener, hearing the jingle of coins, immediately opens the door for the client, asking for forgiveness for such a long wait. The swindler, with the brightest smile and apologies, escorts the guest to the store. Pierre clearly didn't expect to see such a brazen money-making scheme from such a nice girl. Having made himself a cup of tea, Shirabi asks the old man again what kind of problem he has for which he is willing to pay 3 times more. The client, having laid out a map on the table, points his finger at the mountain. The girl says that the climb will not be easy and asks what happened there. The old man says that on this mountain there is a mansion of a high-ranking person, almost completely burnt down. The gardens around it are in a terrible state. Uncle claims that nothing grows there. Even weeds are a rarity. He asks if it can all be restored. Having heard from the girl that it was difficult to restore burnt plants, the grandfather became seriously worried. The man, deeply saddened, asked if this meant that nothing could be fixed now. Shirabi replied that everything was possible, but only under one condition. Smiling sarcastically, the girl says that such an operation would cost the old man a very large sum. The grandfather assures the gardener that she doesn't have to worry about money. She just needs to agree and name the amount. Having heard such pleasant words, the main character takes up a piece of paper and a pen to calculate the price of the service. After some calculations in which she took into account the size of the mansion, made a discount, and multiplied everything by 3, the figure came out to 180. The girl gave the written check to her grandfather. He sighed heavily, but agreed to pay 180 zlotys. He asks if she can complete the task in a month, to which Shirabi replies that she will complete everything in 3 days. The old man puts an advance of 50 zlotys on the table and promises to pay the rest when he sees the result. Having received the money, the girl began to escort the client to the exit, promising that in 3 days she would be waiting for him in the store with the rest of the money. Having gotten rid of the old man, Shirabi sat back down at the table and began to count her money. Pierre decided to ask how she was going to revive an entire garden in 3 days. His girlfriend, without an ounce of concern, replies that everything is fine and that this period of time is more than enough for her to work. Throwing the bag of money, the girl said that he could go with her if he was so interested, casually noting that it was expected to rain today. However, once she found herself at the gates of the mansion at night, Shirabi stopped feeling so confident. She sat down on the ground, exhausted, trying to catch her breath, which had become unsteady from the fact that they had been walking in circles all this time because of the tree's replicas. Pierre asks Shirabi a question that became the last straw before her indignation. Why is she angry if she is probably used to hearing trees? The girl complains that he doesn't know anything, and that everything would go smoothly if she knew the way. She decides to get down to business and touch the old gate, which she assumed meant that the events took place quite a long time ago. Shirabi walked through them and touched a tree branch, which crumbled into crumbs on her fingers. She says things are worse than she expected and that the fire happened about 8 years ago. And this fire was not simple. Someone intentionally burned everything with their abilities, which is why healing magic cannot be used in full in this place. As Shirabi prepares to use magic, he says that he cannot restore the forest, and that only time, rain, and sunlight can help. Pierre asks what the girl is going to do now, to which she, sitting down on the ground, says that she is going to rid this place of vile forces. She asks her partner to take care of her if she loses consciousness. Shirabi touched the ground with her palms, and her power began to take effect. From her hands, magic seeped through the earth into all the plants and trees, which began to blossom before our eyes. In a few seconds, the experienced gardener transformed a long-dead forest into a beautiful, blooming garden. Pierre, who saw such a miracle, could not believe his eyes when he saw the result of Shirabi's work. Rising from the ground, the girl said that she had put in a little more spiritual strength than was required, after which she lost consciousness. The young man deftly caught her, thanks to which the sorceress remained unharmed. Looking at the girl's sleeping face, the guy wondered in surprise whether she was really an ordinary gardener. The night passes. A carriage passes along the road, in which sits an expensively dressed young man and his servant. The gentleman asks why he is going to that mountain. His servant tells him not to be so upset about this and advises him to trust the old man at least this time. Driving past a lonely shop with a closed sign, the man wanted to tell the gentleman about the changed landscape around the mansion, but decided to remain silent. The young man wanted to ask what all this meant, but the servant waved him off and apologized. The carriage arrived at that very mansion, which is now covered with grass, strewn with flowers and green trees. Looking at all this beauty, the gentleman cannot believe his eyes. Touching the trunk of a once-living tree, the man asks the servant who was able to revive this garden. Slightly embarrassed, the servant wanted to say that it was all thanks to the old man's request, but the master interrupted him. He rudely repeats the question that he wants to know thanks to whose hands the garden was so transformed. He, noticing that the gentleman was angry, calls out the name of the gardener Shirabi, which immediately seems familiar to the young man. He almost immediately remembers that this is the same girl who refused every offer to work in the Imperial Palace. The gentleman also recalls that her personality is often discussed by noble ladies. Considering that Her Majesty was now carrying his younger brother, the young man ordered his servant to make the same beautiful trees in the Imperial garden. Looking at the flowers on the branches, the gentleman thought that he would really like for someone else to see this beauty, because he would like it. Meanwhile, the main character listens to a cheerful man in her shop. He says that this time she has done something grandiose, playfully pushing the famous gardener, who is clearly not happy to see him. He reminds her that today is fundraising day. Shirabi went about her business, which made the man very happy. Pierre doesn't understand what kind of fundraising this is. The gardener, who loves money, does not want to give away her bag with 50 zlotys that she recently earned. Very reluctantly, the girl still gives the money to the man, even though Pierre tried to dissuade her. After counting the coins, the old man said that the interest for this month was 20 zlotys, but he would take all 50 and credit it towards the debt. The old man leaves the store, reminding the debtor that she only has 2,512 coins left to pay. Shirabi, drowning in tears, watched him go. Having wished the girl that next month she would also have no problems with paying the installment, he slammed the door. Immediately after this, Pierre pounced with questions about who this man was, why he took the money, and what other debt he had. Wiping away her tears, Shirabi calmly replies that duty is duty, and that there is nothing surprising about it. The young man was surprised when he learned that she had not borrowed anything, but was paying off the debts instead of her parents' friend. The girl is indignant that he doesn't know about the main cliché of doramas, the poor main heroine, to which he says that he doesn't even know what a dorama is. Shirabi explains that according to the canon, her family lived happily until they became impoverished due to an incorrectly drawn-up surety agreement. Then the girl wanted to tell how she came into this world, but she remembered silent memories from her past life when she died because of a suicide. She realizes that in her past life, everything ended badly, and in this one, she is up to her ears in problems. Shirabi says that she must continue to earn money no matter what, but in the end, she always ends up with nothing. Pierre listened to her in silence all this time, until he realized that she had fallen asleep so deeply that she did not even respond to touch. The guy decided to take care of her. He carried the tired lady to the bed and covered her with a blanket. Looking at a strand of her hair, the young man begins a monologue about how hard things are for her, and how he will essentially become another problem for her. Having played with her hair, Pierre wished the girl a good rest and sleep. But after 2 days, his patience snaps, he loudly wakes Shirabi up, causing her to wake up instantly. But the girl grabbed the blanket back, screaming at the ghost to leave her alone. However, the guy turned out to be stronger. He snatched the blanket from the beauty, causing her to fall from the bed onto the floor. Pierre proves to Shirabi that she can't sleep anymore. If she continues, she will die of hunger. But it seems the girl doesn't hear him because she's staring at the view from the window, where the sun's rays are shining brightly on her. After this, without attaching much importance to her friend's words, she climbs back onto the bed to continue sleeping. However, Pierre is not satisfied with this. He forbids the girl to continue to bask in bed, taking her in his arms. Shirabi did not expect this at all. The guy brings the gardener to the restroom, sits her in the bathtub, and pours water on her from the shower, but the girl still can't get over the shock. Pierre broke the silence between them, asking when the main character would start washing herself. Shirabi, flushed with anger, takes the shower head from him and throws him out of the room. The girl assumes that he has gone mad. Otherwise, why would he care whether she will die of hunger or not? Usually, she only heard threats from people. At that moment, she notices her reflection in the mirror, in which she sees herself looking sleepy and untidy. The girl begins to take care of her hygiene, wondering out loud at the ugliness she just saw. The girl completed all her hygiene procedures and left the bathroom. She notices Pierre, who is taking care of a potted plant instead of her. The girl also notices his feet, which are slightly translucent. With a cup of tea, Shirabi sits down on a chair and tells the guy that he won't get any money for his work. And she doesn't have any social benefits either. Pierre does not understand her words, after which the girl says that she is simply warning him. But in exchange, she can give him a roof over his head. The young man asks her if this means that she wants to hire him. Shirabi replies that this is generally possible since there is no need to feed someone like him. However, Pierre says that if necessary, he can eat, to which she says that this is unrealistic for a ghost. Having heard the girl's last words, the guy decided to show her something and asked her to give him her hand. Shirabi didn't quite understand what this meant, but she still extended her hand towards him. Then Pierre asked her to pay attention to the mirror, in which both she and he were reflected. The main character could not control her emotions and choked on her tea in surprise. The ghost did not expect such a sharp reaction and helped the girl cough. Clearing her throat but still in shock, Shirabi asks Pierre how he pulled off such a trick. He says that he doesn't know either, but he remembers how in the palace garden he took the gardener in his arms to carry her to the store. And at that moment, the young man noticed that his leg was not translucent as it had been before. He concluded that by touching Shirabi, it became material. The young man returned to cleaning, and the girl went to look at the mirror. She says that she feels as if she has become stronger. She also says that if she uses her abilities until she is completely depleted, her threshold increases slightly. However, Pierre does not pay attention to her words, and handing her a towel, offers her to dry her wet hair after the shower. The girl, in turn, remembers that she is still offended by him and rejects his help. The guy compares Shirabi to a child and wonders how he got to this point. He complains out loud that he has lived so many years, and now he has to dry his girlfriend's hair himself. The girl heard this and asked about his age. She remembers that Pierre is a spirit and he may be very old. She still asks him this question. The boy said that he was 19, which really surprised the kindergartner because it turns out that they are the same age. Pierre was surprised by this fact, to which Shirabi said that she should be surprised here that the spirit was only 19 years old. He wanted to clarify whether the main character was really 19, because according to him, she looks very small. For such expressions, the girl threw him to the floor and went to open the doors for the arriving clients. Opening the door, she immediately announced that she would only receive 30 people today. After some time, the spirit and the gardener came to a luxurious palace with an amazing landscape around it. Not noticing any obvious problems with the vegetation in this place, Pierre asked the obvious question. Why did they come here? Shirabi says it's all about the two pillars of business: taking care of your regular customers and taking care of your regular customers. The girl adds that there is also a third point, which also involves caring for regular customers. The confused guy says that this is what he wants to know. Why all the fuss? And then he says for the record that they have come to the Duke's residence. She then asks about how she was supposed to go to the palace and that a guy named Glam had been here before. A crowd has gathered around the gardener's shop, shouting out their job offers. One offers to hire him to do some cosmetic repairs to a mansion, while the other demands that he complete the renovation of a new restaurant on time. Pierre, leaning against the trunk of a plant, is surprised by what he sees, comparing this crowd to a war. But suddenly, no one except him notices the strange glow that appeared in the place where he touched the tree. Meanwhile, the crowd is dispersed by the Emperor's envoys who are passing by Shirabi's shop. They were guards for a very noble man who was sent to a talented gardener. After some time, this important person tearfully begs the main character to listen to his proposal. He hands Shirabi a beautiful bag with 100 gold coins, hoping that she will at least give her consent this way. Seeing the money, the girl immediately remembered the creditor who loves to take money from her. She drives him out of her thoughts. The gardener did not even think that the representative of the Imperial family himself would come to her. She is sure that he was sent by the Imperial prince. The girl clarifies that if the man came so that she could become a gardener for the Emperor, then in that case the Imperial family will be in charge of her. Shirabi says that she refuses such an offer again and asks to leave her alone. However, the man is not ready to accept refusal, so he throws a bag of coins right into the girl's hands. Kneeling down, he says that the prince gave him a direct order to assign the gardener to work in the Imperial palace. He also says that he asked many Imperial gardeners about the tree that Shirabi planted. They all said that such a kind of tree does not exist, and the crown prince wants to give his future younger brother a garden in which the same tree will be planted. The man admits that Shirabi is a more talented gardener than the current one in the Imperial palace. However, the main character decides that he just wants to bury her in work, so she advises him to fool someone else. At the same time, the girl admits that they really won't be able to plant a sapling of that tree and grow it as quickly as she did. The dejected man says that it is all due to the incompetence of the current Imperial gardeners. At this point, Pierre intervenes. He gently touches Shirabi's shoulder and asks why she is doing all this. The gardener screams loudly in surprise and curses the guy for scaring her so much. The representative of the Imperial family did not understand what had happened and asked why the girl was so scared. Shirabi says she just heard a strange sound and decides to return to the topic of conversation. The man asks her how much the service will cost. Having set the price at 4 gold, the girl says that the advance payment of 104 gold is only 50. With a sigh of relief, the man gives her a beautiful necklace and tells her that she can now enter the Imperial palace without hindrance. He warns that everything she does in the palace will have to be reported directly to the master. Shirabi happily agrees with everything, while the man thinks to himself about how someone like her could be accepted into the palace. As he left the shop, the representative of the Imperial family reminded the gardener to come see him after work, after which he slammed the door. The girl sat down tiredly on a chair. Pierre poured her a glass of water. Shirabi asks the guy why he wants to enter the Imperial palace so much. Noticing his puzzled expression, she asks if he didn't want her to become an Imperial gardener in order to get into the palace. Pierre says that now he can do it only with her personal presence. However, Shirabi twirls her finger in denial. The girl says that the palace is protected by a powerful magical barrier, and that one cannot get in without permission. She asks why the guy needs this so much. Hearing no response, the gardener sips a glass of water, proud that she got the job without any red tape. Only she doesn't know what to do next. Remembering that same trick with the forest coming to life, Pierre asks if she can do the same thing as then, to which Shirabi says that she is afraid of making a mistake because the crown prince himself wants to see her. Ironically asking herself why he can't leave her alone, the girl leaves the table. A guy sits down in her place and, as if about to start a serious conversation, says that only she can help him with something. Suddenly, the main character appears again near him in a different image. She decided that she had no choice and would have to go to the palace. Already leaving the door, she asks Pierre what he is going to do, because she cannot understand him at all. The girl ordered him not to stand there like a pillar, but rather to follow her, while the guy wanted to tell her something, but didn't have time. Time returns to the present, where Pierre and Shirabi stand at the Duke's gate. Everything that happened before this caused the ghost to think that they would go to the Imperial palace. The gardener introduces herself to the guards, after which the gates open for them. Walking through the luxurious courtyard, the girl reminds that if they want to earn money, then they don't need to feel sorry for themselves. The guy says that there is no point in this because the loan shark will take all the money anyway, to which the gardener tells him not to ruin the whole motivation. Shirabi aggressively assures that even if she doesn't have much money, harvesting seedlings is not a useless endeavor. The girl walked further towards the entrance to the palace, offended at Pierre for such words. The ghost, meanwhile, remembers the incident when he touched the tree trunk and a glow appeared. Then the boy heard the tree, after mentioning a man who would be loved by the people, say that it could not believe that it was still remaining in that wretched shop because of that rumor. Pierre asks the tree spirit why, if he knows everything, he is not going to tell Shirabi anything. The creature, crawling out of the tree, says that they cannot interfere in human affairs without the permission of their direct destiny. The guy wonders if this means he shouldn't ask questions. The spirit reminds that Pierre has no physical shell and that he stands between life and death, but at the same time wants to be treated like a human being. Watching the gardener, he recognizes the strength of her abilities, although she is still very young. The entity expresses the opinion that there is no one in the whole world who can compare to it, so they should be careful. Pierre does not understand his words, which is why the spirit explains that strong people have a harder time living, and they are usually alone. On behalf of all the tree spirits, the creature says that they would like Shirabi to realize her power as late as possible, thus avoiding danger. Dissolving into thin air, the spirit asks the guy to take care of the girl until he leaves the store forever. He mentions that the gardener has been dealing with all the difficulties since childhood. They cannot give her love. Only people can do that. Looking closely at his friend's tracks, Pierre understands that even though he listened to the spirit then, he still doesn't know how to help her. Meanwhile, a servant greets the girl and says that she has heard about Lady Shirabi. The gardener became embarrassed and said that she should have come earlier, for which she apologized. The servant, on the contrary, says that she should thank the main character for such care. She takes the couple to the Imperial garden, after which she asks Shirabi to take care of its beauty. Having happily started working, the girl boasts that she has already earned as many as 4 gold coins. Pierre says it looks like a normal tree-tending job and asks if she does it to get quality branches. He also adds that the gardener can now move freely between the residence and the Imperial palace. Suddenly, Shirabi hears words that make her stick her tongue out at him. The guy thinks it's stupid to invite a thief like her to the Imperial palace. She says that her skills are simply very good and asks the young man to bring a stepladder, which he immediately does. Having deftly made her way along the stepladder and branches, the girl finds herself high up in the tree. Pierre warns her not to fall, to which Shirabi tells him to get ready to catch her. The girl's last words made the boy blush. He turned them over in his head as the gardener continued her work. But the girl, seeing his idleness, forced him to come out of his fantasies and continue collecting branches. With her business done, Shirabi jumped down from the tree, preparing to move on to the next one. But suddenly, she notices a completely dry tree. The girl cannot understand what happened to it and why it is in such a state. Using her magic, she tries to help the tree, but not a word is heard from it. Pierre asks if the tree is dead, to which the gardener replies in the negative, because she slightly senses its spiritual energy. She keeps trying to get the tree to talk, but it doesn't produce any results. But suddenly, the main character has a brilliant idea, and she asks Pierre to give her an axe. He thought that she wanted to cut off something from the plant and was just about to carry out the order, but realized that he could not take the axe in his hand. Pierre is confused by the fact that for unknown reasons, in addition to his leg, his arm has also become translucent. Shirabi got tired of waiting and took the tool in her hands, calling the guy useless because he couldn't handle such trifles. The girl walked towards the tree, and the offended Pierre insisted that he was not at all as useless as she thought. The gardener, meanwhile, without any sympathy on her face, swung her axe straight at the dried-up Imperial plant. It was at this moment that the tree ordered the girl to stop. Fortunately, the blade did not manage to damage it. Shirabi removes the axe from the frightened tree, expressing joy that she was able to get it to talk. The girl says that this was her last warning, and next time there won't be a stump left of him. After analyzing the tree, which could not have suffered so much from disease or lack of nutrition, the gardener orders him to tell the whole truth. The couple were puzzled when it turned out that the tree had been damaged due to the child's mischief and stress. When Pierre was surprised about stress in trees, Shirabi was also taken aback by the fact that he didn't know that such a thing happened to them. The guy doesn't understand how a 5-year-old child could do something like that to a tree, while the girl says that it's entirely possible. She calls the tree species ginkgo. The gardener says it likes to be treated with respect. The ghost wonders if there is any connection between the type of tree and the nature of its spirit. But instead of answering, Shirabi notes that he knows nothing at all about her new partner. Ginkgo biloba is a kind of tree that does not exist in this world. After opening the shop 3 to 4 years ago, she wanted to attract customers with it. Then she went around to all the richest families in the state and planted one of these trees in their gardens. In her previous life in Korea, they could be found everywhere. They are strong and adaptable and also pleasant to the eye. Considering that the tree is kind and human-like, Shirabi suggests calling it Count or King so that it doesn't get upset. The girl says that she will report everything to the owners of the site in any case, but reminds the plant that it was she who planted and grew it. The tree apologizes to her, and she decides that they have come to a mutual understanding. After this, the main character begins to heal the tree, as she wanted to do in the beginning. Thanks to the magic of a talented gardener, withered branches instantly become covered with gorgeous young foliage. Night has fallen. Shirabi, already in her shop, shakes off her hands after a long work, in which she prepared as many as 100 seedlings. Pierre says that she is very generous and that this will be more than enough for the Imperial family. She, taking the cart with seedlings outside, agrees and says that some of them can be planted near their house. The guy catches up with her and asks why the girl is doing this in the middle of the night. The girl replies that there are many people in the palace during the day, and she wants to avoid unnecessary glances. She does not want to look strange talking to trees. At the same time, she says that the attention of others can be useful if you suddenly lose consciousness. Passersby can provide assistance. And last time, working with burnt trees was much more difficult and energy-consuming than this one, in which you just need to plant seedlings. Pierre is tormented by another question. What is wrong with that very axe that the main character always takes with her? Shirabi says it's made of soft material, but if you apply force, you can chop down trees with it. She bought it for 3 gold. It is very useful to her because it helps her threaten spirits and cut wood. She cites a recent incident with the spirit ginkgo as an example. Her partner asked if this meant that she was simply chopping down trees for them, to which she sternly replied that it was not. Pierre did not expect such an outburst of emotions from the girl, so he thought that he said something wrong. Shirabi says that people and spirits are not the same. Evil can settle in a person's heart, but it can also leave. But spirits are completely different. Their emotions may not change their entire lives unless someone helps them do so. Just in case, the girl repeats to the guy once again that she doesn't cut down trees just like that. Pulling the cart again, the gardener expresses her joy that Pierre looks more like a man than a spirit. He, remembering the spirit's words that only a person can give love to a person, hurried to catch up with his girlfriend. The day comes. Shirabi tells the palace knights to stop, thanking them for their work and asking them to pretend they don't know her. She grabs a few seedlings and walks away from the men, who don't understand what has suddenly made the girl so angry. Her partner decides to ask what caused such emotions in the girl. After all, Pierre noticed how her mood changed as soon as she entered the Imperial estates. Shirabi says that her mood was destined to be spoiled because she saw the mess in the newly built garden. Boiling with anger, she blames everything on the Imperial gardeners, who should have removed the stones, dust, and lime from the garden. The boy recalls that his friend once said that she was at odds with the Imperial gardeners. Based on this, he asks why they treat her so disdainfully. Looking at the dust, Shirabi says that he doesn't know, and assumes that they came here too early and didn't have time to clean everything up. However, the girl assures that they should clean up the mess, because it will be impossible to plant trees in such polluted soil. She bends her head directly to the soil and asks nature to help her cleanse the land, delighting it by bringing little friends. The request for help is immediately answered by a magical fairy, who in turn asks the wind to help her. Together, they willingly sweep away all the stones, sticks, dust, and other dirt from the Imperial garden. A few seconds later, the ground was cleared, causing the palace to shine with new colors. Shirabi, seeing such beauty, admiringly declared that now she was in the mood to work. Pierre, watching the girl, begins to feel strange. This always happens when she uses her power. His face and neck became flushed, making it obvious that the nature of this sensation was romantic. However, the gardener, noticing the guy busy with something incomprehensible, accused him of shirking his work. He became even more embarrassed and insistently asked his friend not to pay attention to him. But he couldn't stop Shirabi, who came right up to his face, staring intently. After this, the girl leaves without saying a word, and the guy breathes a sigh of relief. After some time, the gardener finished her work, having planted quite a number of seedlings. Assessing her work, the girl considers what color of wood would go well with the palace's design. She considers pink, but immediately discards this option. A man suddenly appears from behind and asks the worker again what color she thinks would be the perfect match. Turning around, Shirabi noticed an expensively dressed gentleman. She assumed that it might be one of the Imperial administrators. The gentleman gets tired of the main character's silence, so he asks her again about the color. Suddenly, the gardener admits that instead of planting new trees, it would be better to decorate the ones that are already in the garden with flowers. The gentleman wonders if this means that the girl does not want to plant new trees. Sharabi, sweating profusely, says that she thinks it would be best to plant only half of the seedlings. She herself wonders who this stranger could be. Suddenly, she changes the subject and asks the man who he is. The gentleman was surprised at first, but then laughed at such a stupid question. His answer surprised the girl even more. Soon she would learn his name, but for now he asked her to decorate the palace as she saw fit. The man remembered that the person in front of him was the same gardener who had recently restored the burnt garden. At that moment, Sharabi realized that this was the crown prince. However, the prince sets a condition. He wants the rose tree from the garden to be here too. The gentleman continued to say something to Sharabi, but she did not hear him because she was thinking about how irritating this meeting was to her. But she immediately thought about the benefit to her. Working for such a rich family, she should earn a lot of money. Based on these thoughts, she makes a statement that if the crown prince changes the working conditions, the price of services will increase. The girl also says that instead of large trees, it would be appropriate to plant small flower beds here. But working with flowers is not her main specialization, so she will charge extra for harvesting and moving new seedlings. The prince agrees and promises to convey all the conditions to the treasurer, which makes the gardener smile contentedly. Already leaving Sharabi, the gentleman says that he is eager to see what a beautiful garden she will make for him. She bows after him. As soon as the crown prince left, she allowed herself to let out her emotions of joy. But suddenly Pierre distracts her, saying that she did well. The girl asks again what he means. The guy says that when you meet someone with a higher status than you immediately start to get nervous. And this is normal, but instead, Sharabi bargained with the crown prince himself, which makes the boy feel a little ashamed. Filling the watering can with water, the girl says that there is nothing wrong with it because she is not afraid of anything. But at that very moment, she begins to doubt. Because, according to her, fears come in different forms. Hearing this, Pierre decides to ask his friend to tell him about her fears. In response, she said with a very gloomy face that what she was most afraid of was the money ghost. Sharabi changes the subject and says that the crown prince's visit is a bit strange because he is known to be a busy man. Pierre also reflects that the prince probably does not consider himself someone special, since this is the first time he has seen a person of imperial blood behave like this. Some time passes. The gardener is busy with work, scattering plant seeds on the ground. Her friend notices this and with a displeased face asks the girl to pay attention to him. She responded, after which Pierre gloomily reminded her that she charges an additional fee for the purchase and transportation of seedlings, which does not happen now. Suddenly, Sharabi says that she lied about all this for money, which again makes the guy feel ashamed for his friend. Looking at the seeds scattered on the grass, Pierre wonders what she is going to do. Because these are the most ordinary seeds. The gardener assures that this species is easier to change and gives the example of a rose tree, which does not exist in their world. She admits that there is one problem, which is the architecture of this palace. And because of this, she can't find flowers that match the design. Pierre is surprised because he thought that Sharabi already knew in advance what kind she needed. The girl says that she has some options, but there are so many that she doesn't even know what to choose. She decides to ask Pierre if he has any ideas. He is deep in thought, but suddenly they are distracted by a voice coming from nearby, persistently calling Sharabi. The girl immediately guesses that these are the trees asking for attention. The couple moved closer to the tall tree, which it turns out has its own opinion about the flower bed. After listening to his proposal, the gardener promised that she would listen to him. The day passes. The palace garden is now decorated with a meadow of flowers and many pink trees. This beauty is admired by knights, servants, and the personal messenger of the crown prince. Sharabi, with a satisfied smile, admires the work done and presents the new garden to the master. The prince, looking at the flowers, also admires the garden, which has been so transformed in such a short time. Reminding that this is a child's garden, the gardener praises white flowers, a color that symbolizes innocence. They also go perfectly with the pink trees. At this moment, the messenger of the master is watching the girl. He recognizes her ability to surprise. He admires the fact that Sharabi, unlike other gardeners, made many previously unseen plants bloom at once. The man even thinks that the main character's abilities go beyond common sense. He has no idea what kind of trees the gardener planted and is sure that no one else knows. Eventually, he wonders where she gets so many seedlings of a tree that is unknown to the whole world. Gently touching Sharabi's shoulder, the prince's messenger praises her for such a magnificent result, even though there are still a few things left to do in the garden. At this time, the crown prince is distracted by a pink petal that fell right next to his foot. Taking a closer look, the gentleman wonders out loud how small they are and how many of them there are. Shirabi and the messenger turn towards the sound as if they heard something surprising. Suddenly, the crown prince approaches the gardener with a proposal. Would she like to continue working in the Imperial Palace? At first, the girl was angered by his words, but after pulling herself together, she politely reminded him that she had already rejected this offer more than once. Looking at the petal, the prince wonders why she does not give consent. In response, the gardener also repeats that she has already explained the reason many times. The gentleman says that he did not understand her words, after which he politely asks her to explain. She, sighing heavily, asks the envoy how much will go towards the road tax this time. He names approximately 4 gold pieces. Shirabi then asks about the salary of Imperial gardeners. The man says it is 15 gold per month. The girl admits that every time she goes to get new types of plants, she pays a tax of 4 gold. And it only takes her 4 trips to pick up plants for the costs to outweigh her salary. Taking her watering can, the girl says that her work is finished and then leaves the men. But suddenly she decides to return to the crown prince and remind him about the extra charge for services, which is 25 gold. Pierre, seeing such impudent behavior of his friend, almost fell into the ground with shame. He asks the girl if she has a drop of conscience and fear left in her soul, to which Shirabi says that nothing will happen to her, as she already said. She just wants to earn money. The girl recalls that she has vivid memories from a past life where she lived for 19 years, but was never able to integrate into society. The gentleman's next words surprised the gardener quite a bit. He offered her a salary of 100 gold. According to him, this way she will be able to become an imperial gardener without any loss to herself and take care of the imperial family's garden. Suddenly, Shirabi covers her face with her hand in irritation and sighs heavily. She, having asked His Majesty's forgiveness in advance for her rudeness, says that the cost of work in his garden will be no less than 140 gold pieces. The girl also adds that even a salary of 100 gold would not be enough for an imperial gardener. And finally, she says that she doesn't have so much free time to take care of the master's garden. Based on this, Shirabi concludes that she is forced to refuse. But if the prince needs her services, then she is ready to carry out individual tasks. After all that was said, the girl glanced sideways at Pierre, who was clearly acting as if he wanted to dissuade her. The gardener was about to leave, wondering whether the gentleman would risk offering her this position again after his personal refusal. But suddenly, she hears completely shocking words from the prince. He offers to increase the salary by 500 gold. His Majesty reminds that no one but he has the right to decide what salary the imperial gardener deserves. The gentleman is counting on Shirabi's consent, which puts her in an even more shocking situation. The prince also promises that he will also pay for all of the girl's additional expenses. The gardener was so surprised by what was happening that she thought that it was all suspicious and that she couldn't have been so lucky. She wanted to say again that she refused, but the gentleman forestalled her, declaring that she could not do this. He explains that if she refuses again, she will show disrespect to the imperial family, and he will accuse her of disloyalty. Shirabi falls to the ground in despair, not understanding why God gave her such a punishment and what is wrong with this prince. His Majesty, having looked at the beauty around, again praised the talented gardener for her work. Once home, the exhausted main character says that she wants to leave the country, to which Pierre says that knowledge of a foreign language is necessary. The guy assures the girl that if she agrees, all paths will be open to her. Moreover, this is not an ordinary event, but an international one. Shirabi slams her fist on the table and says that's exactly why she doesn't want to do this. She talks about some event that is considered very important. The girl admits that she can't stand it. The gardener is sure that if she tries her best, she will have even more ill-wishers. Pierre asks his friend if she really has such a bad relationship with the imperial gardeners. Shirabi says that's not quite true. And anyway, she's just too lazy to give it her all and do a bunch of responsibilities. The girl admits that she understands the feelings of those gardeners since she herself is the owner of a garden. Pierre says that it is not entirely correct for the main character to compare herself to them. Suddenly, the guy asks Shirabi to pay attention to the door, on which someone has been knocking for a long time. The gardener says she is aware of this and has put a closed sign on the door, which the stranger ignores. Taking a deep breath, the girl decides to go and open the door for this persistent client. Pierre began to worry at this point. He thought it would be a good idea to keep an eye on his friend and find out who had come to see them. Opening the door of the store, Shirabi saw a small, cute girl with big eyes in front of her. With a beaming smile, the little girl politely asked the saleswoman for 1 flower. If this were an adult, the gardener would immediately slam the door in his face. But this is a child, so she decides to keep her cool. She also politely tells the girl that she is not involved in growing flowers and recommends that she go to another store. But the child doesn't think of leaving, because she was told that Shirabi's store is the most popular place. The main character sighs wearily at the thought that now she is an ordinary florist to everyone. The little girl repeats her request again. She really wants to give a present to her mother. After telling Shirabi a story about her mother, who is soon going to marry her father, the girl says that she wants to give her mother a nice wedding gift. An angel and a demon circle around the main character's head. One says it's a waste of time, and the other declares that she's just a child. In the end, the angel wins, after which the gardener asks what kind of bouquet she wants to give. In response, the girl hands her a drawing, which puzzles her even more. The gardener assumes that it is a flower called lily. Pierre, noticing that Shirabi was going to make a bouquet out of politeness, says the quote, "Trials are no obstacle to love." The girl, with a hint of irritation on her face, says that she doesn't understand what he's talking about at all. She explains that the flower she needs grows only in hard-to-reach places, and only at high altitudes. It opens its buds despite the mountain winds and storms. The gardener understands that it is impossible to determine exactly what kind of flower it is from the picture, so she will have to go to the cliff and check it herself. The main character agrees to the girl's order and gives her a notebook with a drawing. However, she warns the client that the price will be much higher than usual, since the flowers she needs are not so easy to find. A little girl asks the saleswoman to clarify the exact cost of the service. Taking into account the cost of travel and the difficulty of the task, Shirabi says that in the best case it will be 20 gold, and maybe more. Bursting into tears, the girl hands the gardener a 5 gold coin that she brought with her. But her mood instantly improves when, out of pity, the girl gives her a discount. Shirabi tells her to come for the bouquet the day after tomorrow and not to forget about it. The child agrees and bows in gratitude. After this, they say goodbye cheerfully, and the client leaves the gardener's shop. Time passes and evening comes. The gardener puts on comfortable shoes as if she is going somewhere. Pierre notices this and tries to stop her because his girlfriend hasn't slept for a whole day. However, Shirabi says that she needs to go flower shopping since she can't make a bouquet out of flowers she's never seen before. The guy asks her if she will feel broken when it is time to go to the Imperial Palace. So he asks the girl not to do this and asks if it wouldn't be easier for her to just modify the flowers growing here, to which she refuses. As she leaves the store, the gardener explains that flowers are many times weaker than trees and tells her friend not to worry about her. Suddenly, Shirabi, walking along a path through the forest, is caught up by Pierre and asked to stop. The girl, pointing into the distance with her finger, asks the guy if this place is suitable. But looking around, she doubted whether this was the right road at all. Pierre even suspects that she does not know where to go, because they are walking along this road for the 3rd time. Shirabi covered her ears from his indignation and asked him to let her think, after which they moved on. After 20 minutes, when the sun had already set, the couple came across a high, steep mountain. Seeing this, the girl already began to think that she had made a mistake and had been going in the wrong direction all this time. Sighing, Pierre asks his friend to finally admit that she too has her shortcomings. The gardener is in no hurry to accept this, but admits that she has a couple of shortcomings, like any other person. While his girlfriend peers at the top of the mountain, the guy says that he has guessed why she decided to start searching during the day. But suddenly, Shirabi starts calling for a certain Leifilea, which slightly alarms Pierre. He wanted to know what she was doing or who she was calling, but he couldn't do it through her screams. Suddenly, very high on the mountain, a beautiful bush of flowers responded and asked if it was being called. The gardener replies that this is true and that she wants to take the flower for herself. When the flower asked why she needed it, Shirabi said that some girl really wanted to give it to her mother. After this, a beautiful girl came down from the mountain, as beautiful as this flower, looking like a fairy. She asks again if they really want to give it to her, after which the main character answers positively. The gardener wanted to explain to Leifilea that if she didn't want to, she wouldn't do it. But the fairy still said that she agreed, even if it was about a small child. Shirabi explains to the lady that this girl may be clumsy in caring for her, for example, skipping watering time or, on the contrary, watering too often. But Leifilea asked the girl to be silent, placing her index finger on her lips and then reminding her that she was aware of all this. Flying back, the fairy says that she will sort everything out herself, but the main character will have to work hard to get her. Possessing her flower back, Leifilea asks Shirabi to do whatever it takes to get her. The girl immediately decides to act and takes a long, thick rope out of the bucket. Pierre starts to worry and says that one rope is not enough for insurance and wants to offer his friend his help. However, the gardener, having tied her waist tighter, tells him not to worry and that she will climb there alone and will handle everything. The guy continues to insist that Shirabi could fall and break her neck, to which she wonders why he even thought she would fall. Soon, the girl was confidently climbing the rock, getting closer and closer to the flower. She was supported by little fairies who flew around her and shouted comforting phrases. But Pierre, in comparison with them, was not so calm and seemed to have a premonition of trouble. He decided to fly closer to the girl and call out to her, but she did not pay any attention to him. Suddenly, what the boy was so afraid of happened. Shirabi tripped over a stone and began to fall down the mountain. Before Pierre could understand anything, a tree that grew on a cliff not far from them suddenly cried out that it would now help the gardener. Pulling one of her branches towards the unfortunate woman, the girl deftly grabs it, thereby saving her life. Having calmed down a little, she feels with her foot a ledge in the rock, on which she leans to keep from falling again. After a few minutes, having spent a decent amount of energy, Shirabi successfully crawls to her goal. She digs up the flower, after which the fairies begin to circle around her again, congratulating her on her victory. Thanks to their magic, the girl painlessly descends to the ground with the flower. Having planted the beauty she had found in a bucket, she sat down tiredly on the ground and admitted that it had been hard to climb the mountain. Shirabi notices her rather large wound on her knee, which also stings badly. Pierre grumbles that he already warned her about such consequences. He says that no matter how strong she is, the gardener can still get seriously injured or even die. The one who is already tired of listening to her friend's discontent covers her ears with her hands. Suddenly, Pierre, with a deft movement, grabs the bucket with the flower and takes the girl in his arms, whose surprise is written on her face. Shirabi says that she understands that because of the wound on her leg, she won't be able to walk. But she still doesn't understand why her friend is doing this. The ghost, comparing the girl to a small child, says that he will carry her home himself. After some thought, the gardener happily agrees with him and allows him to help her. And the guy, seeing her reaction, assumes that she likes being carried in his arms. After some time, they find themselves in a small shop where Shirabi has transplanted Lefalea into a pot. The fairy of this flower also did not keep her waiting long, and the main character decided to ask her about where it would be best to put it. She says that she simply hates the heat and the scorching sun, and prefers the cool shade. Shirabi writes everything down in a notebook, but suddenly Lefalea decides to ask her why she is looking after her so tenderly. Flying closer, the fairy asks if the gardener is doing all this so that she will refuse to be a gift. The girl explains that if only the roots of a tree remain, it will still be able to grow again. However, with flowers, it is different. When transplanted, they often dry out quickly. Lefalea laughs and says it doesn't matter and that she can still bring joy to people. The fairy shares the main character's concerns that spirits should spend their entire lives in one place with their plant and live in comfort. But at the same time, she believes that it is all meaningless, and she will be happy if she can make someone happier with her bright life. Touching Shirabi's fingers, who is not happy to hear such words, Falea says that everyone has different desires, and one day she will understand her too. In the meantime, she decides to give the gardener a blessing. She blesses her for good luck in her relationship. The girl is perplexed by her words, as if she wants to cry. After this, Lefalea's spirit disappears. Noticing his friend's dejected mood, Pierre wanted to support her and ask how she was feeling. In response, she sarcastically asks why she should be out of order. Shirabi can't believe that this flower wanted to do this from the start. She admits that being a gardener is not an easy job. After anxiously drinking a glass of water, the girl sits down on a chair, sadly stating the fact that she has to listen to all this. Now she says with relief that she can finally rest, when suddenly there was a knock on the door. With flames coming out of her mouth, the gardener opens the door for the visitor and shouts that the sign says, "Closed." The man was taken aback by the girl's greeting, while she continued to scold him for arriving late. But Shirabi stops screaming when she recognizes the stranger who came as one of the knights of the Imperial palace. The man was glad that the girl recognized him, after which he confirmed that he was simply a knight, and he didn't come for no reason. The guy returns the gardener's tool, which she left in the palace. But at this moment, his attention is drawn to the wound on the main character's leg, from which blood is still flowing. Before Shirabi could understand anything, the Imperial knight carefully wrapped a scarf around her knee. After this, the knight says that she looks tired, so he will not detain her for long. He hopes that the gardener will return to them tomorrow. The man leaves the store, leaving the girl, who was unable to utter a word, with a bunch of questions. Pierre noticed her puzzled expression and asked ironically if she regretted not being able to hit that guy. Shirabi gets angry again and says that she didn't have to do that, and then she even asks her friend who he thinks she is. The gardener leaves the room, leaving Pierre alone with his unsuccessful joke. But still, the guy breathes a sigh of relief that his girlfriend's deep wound is now bandaged. Then he squats down and tries to reach a small first aid kit, but his hand goes through the object. The spirit of Lafayli, who had been watching him all this time, asks Pierre if he has become accustomed to living in his intangible body. He admits that as a human being who should have a physical body, he is now behaving unnaturally. The fairy says that it looks as if he is not telling the whole truth. The guy says that human relationships are permeated with lies, which is not the case with spirits, so now there is no point in him lying. A day later, the young client receives her order, the beauty of which she cannot take her eyes off. Shirabi gives the child her coin and tells her not to come to her again because she no longer plans to raise them. The girl says that she understands everything and happily thanks the gardener for her services. After that, beaming with happiness, she runs home from the garden shop. Remembering the fairy's words that she would be glad to be able to give someone a smile, Shirabi smiles herself, looking after the girl. Meanwhile, the young client, whose former enthusiastic smile has already disappeared, walks down a dark alley with a flower. She enters a dark house where a girl was already waiting for her. She asks if she did everything as she was told. The girl replies that she did exactly that, and then hands the lady a pot with a plant. She is very happy about it. She takes it and places it on the table, amazed that she was able to get the real Lefalea. The girl remembers that 3 years have already passed since the main character appeared in the capital and created a sea of problems for her. She grabs the business card of Shirabi's garden shop and mercilessly burns it in the fire. The girl promises herself that she will never allow her offender to be put in charge of organizing the festival in honor of the founding of the country. The flower she has can withstand strong winds, storms, and produces beautiful buds. But just like roses that have thorns, the fragile-looking Lefalea also has her own weapons. If its petals are ground into powder and added to a drink, the drinker will die from paralyzing poison. The girl says that she would be happy to watch as the flower that Shirabi found with such difficulty stabs her in the back. The gardener is bargaining with a man at the table. She is not satisfied with the price she was offered in exchange for the goods. She tells her interlocutor that she is not some small gardener, as he thinks, to which the man suggests that she set the price herself. The girl says that she will take 75 silver coins for the trees and not a coin less. The man was not consoled by the price, to which Shirabi justified herself by saying that the trees were unusual and were only sold in her store. The buyer begins to get angry because he cannot lower the price, although he was counting on the youth and inexperience of the gardener. The man concludes that she will sell all the trees and growth accelerators in the box for the 95 gold. But suddenly his eyes lit up with the hope of buying everything cheaper when the girl began to say that she would give him a special bonus. But in reality, it turned out that Shirabi would simply give him a discount of 1 coin. The man had given up hope that it would be a gold coin. But seeing the gardener's displeasure, he assumed it was silver. The saleswoman replied that it was a bronze coin and that she had never seen things being sold for so little. The buyer was very upset because a discount of 1 bronze coin would hardly allow him to save any money from the amount. Having bought everything at the set price, the man left the store in tears, and the gardener happily waved goodbye to him. Shirabi, being on cloud 9, began to count her money, imagining how she would pay off a little more of the debt. But Pierre asks her to stop counting the coins because they are not going anywhere, and to think about the upcoming festival in honor of the founding of the country. The guy then asks if her reluctance to do this festival is that great, to which the gardener suggests that he himself would not want to be involved in organizing it. Shirabi says that if she orders the Imperial gardeners to do something, all she will hear in response is their displeasure at the fact that she is ordering them around. Because of this, the preparation for the festival, in the girl's opinion, will turn into a living hell. Then, Pierre asks her what she is going to do. Laughing, the girl says that perhaps this very night she will be able to escape to another country, which causes discontent in her friend. Suddenly, a man appears in the room whom Shirabi and Pierre did not expect to see. This unexpected guest turned out to be the crown prince. The girl, although in a state of shock, does not forget to greet him politely. She, remembering the bag of money that she recently received, hides it, throwing it into a box with plants. The gardener jokes that the gentleman has no business at all. He says that he decided to come to her personally. The prince asks if she really does not want to take part in the upcoming festival. The girl doesn't answer his questions, but only makes a displeased face. The crown prince then makes it clear that he knows about her debt. and that it is a very large one. The gentleman says that if last time he failed to persuade the girl using the stick in the form of threats, now he wants to do it using the carrot. This time, the prince offers Shirabi 1,000 gold for her services and promises to give the entire amount at once. The main character was very surprised at first, and then she thought about her creditor and how the Imperial gardeners would treat her. But despite this, she falls to her knees before the crown prince, cheerfully declaring that she agrees. Pierre, watching his friend's latest race for money, again feels ashamed for her. As soon as the prince left, Shirabi immediately began to rack her brain over what to do with such a large amount of coins. The guy asks if she wanted to pay off the debt, to which she says that she has already saved up the amount that she has to pay back next month. The gardener is immensely happy to realize that for the first time in her life, she has so much money that will remain in her hands. She is thinking about expanding the shop a little and giving it a cosmetic makeover. Then she even says that in this situation, she can buy the neighboring kindergarten. Next, she suggests that Pierre get some kind of pet, for example, a cat or a dog. But he says he doesn't want any cats because he's allergic to them. Shirabi was about to laugh at the spirit who had allergies when she suddenly heard a knock. The couple immediately paid attention to it. Opening the door for the visitor, the girl saw in front of her a gorgeous bouquet of red roses, even bigger than herself. She calmly tells the man with the bouquet that she is not a florist and that the flowers are still alive, but she does not know how to help him. But suddenly, a seasoned Imperial knight appears from behind the bouquet and asks if the gardener remembers him. While handing the lady flowers, the guy says that he brought them not because he has some request for her. Elegantly kissing Shirabi's hand, the knight says that this is a gift for her. While the girl does not understand what is happening, the suitor is surprised that despite the fact that she has a flower shop, she said that she does not sell flowers. The guy walks into the shop looking around and assuming that her shop must be very beautiful. He then says that his name is Kayan, and as she already knows, he is a knight. Shirabi sheepishly agrees to this. Suddenly, Kayan plucks up his courage and asks the main character if she will be free during the festival in honor of the country's foundation. The knight says that after the procession ends, he will be free all the time, so he would like to spend the festival with Shirabi. The girl wanted to answer something, but he got ahead of her, saying that she could communicate her decision directly on the day of the holiday. After advising her to think carefully, Kayan hurried away, since today he would have to stand guard. Having asked for forgiveness if he distracted the gardener from her work, the knight says goodbye, wishing her a quick meeting. Shirabi remained standing like a pillar, not uttering a single word due to shock. But suddenly she is surprised that this knight has never been to the festival in honor of the founding of the country, while Pierre says that this is not the case at all. The main character does not see any romantic pitfall in Kayan's behavior, so she decides that he simply has no friends and decided to invite her. The ghost sighs in irritation and asks if she is really going to accept his invitation. The guy asks this for a reason, because as it turns out, he also wanted to be with Shirabi during the festival. In response, the girl is upset that Pierre also has no friends. But she remembers that he cannot have them, because only she can see him. Tearing a hair from his head, the gardener says that she can tie it to him for good luck, and then even offers to go to the festival with Kayan instead of her. Saddened, Pierre leaves the girl, regretting what he said. Shirabi, however, could not understand what he wanted. A short period of time passes. Having put the roses in a vase, the girl remembers Lifilea's words that she wants to be a gift and make her recipient happy, after which she smiles at the fact that she was able to understand her words to some extent. Pierre was so absorbed in her smile that he spilled water for the tree. He thinks that his girlfriend usually smiles only when she sees money. Suddenly, a startling thought occurs to him. She is smiling because she likes Kayan. Thus, some misunderstanding has taken root. Sometime later, in the Imperial Palace, Shirabi plants the last seedling in the ground and waters it with a growth accelerator. Having finished her work, she admires the beautiful garden that she transformed herself. Pierre says that the garden shines with a special brilliance today, while the girl reluctantly accepts his compliment. An old man who suddenly appeared nearby declares that the gardener's power is slowly growing, and she has some influence on the nearby plants. Noticing that the spirit is talking about her power, the girl asks him to tell her more about it. However, her partner himself argues that plants were not particularly friendly before, but now they themselves are taking the initiative to help. Shirabi herself also notices that the flower's spirit has become much more distinct than that of the little girls she has seen before. She then asks the old man if it is a good sign that she is getting stronger. The spirit says that one cannot look at this process from only one side, because every action has its own reaction. Even if someone wants to lead a peaceful life, there is a high probability that he will not succeed. The old man adds that everywhere there are those who envy people born with such talent. The spirit warns Shirabi about the danger and that it is not good to make many enemies, because 3 years ago, one unpleasant incident already happened to the main character. Pierre asks what the incident was about that happened 3 years ago, to which the girl, covered in sweat, says that it was just a small nonsense. 3 years ago, all gardeners began to consider Shirabi their enemy number one. Because of this, the girl often had to erase nasty inscriptions addressed to her. And one day at that time, two men told her that, according to rumors, she was the owner of the most profitable shop in the capital. They also said that according to rumors, the main character has no moral principles at all, and she doesn't even know what shame is. Another man confirms that the blue-eyed brat doesn't understand the essence of the matter and has no respect for her older colleagues. His friend agreed with him that what goes around comes around. As a result, these two reinforced the belief that Shirabi would not last long in her job. But at that moment, the girl did not tolerate their bullying and said that they had no right to harm someone else's store and allow themselves to make threats against her. The men say that everything they have is earned with blood and sweat, that they did not threaten her, but only gave her advice. Having flicked the girl's face, they left, complaining that their mood had completely deteriorated and they could no longer be in that place. An angry Shirabi had no choice but to watch her offenders leave. And it wasn't that she had done something wrong back then. Time returns to the present, where a beautiful young lady admires her transformed garden. Her servant says that all this was done by a new gardener, who, although young, is very talented. In fact, 3 years ago, the main character was disliked because of ordinary envy. In gardening, she was head and shoulders above the others. A memory emerges from the past of Shirabi seeing a pile of notes on her desk, after which she asks the butler what it all means. The butler replies that these are requests sent by the duke's wife and her friends, and this means that every mansion in their capital offers the girl a job. The gardener was very surprised by this news. Upon hearing this story, it became obvious to Pierre that this had definitely caused an explosion of discontent among the other gardeners. The guy even suggests that the capital's gardeners could have lost their livelihood, which the girl also agrees with. Shirabi says that she is of course pleased, but because of her, the gardeners lost their jobs, so she understands perfectly well why those people hated her. Because of this, she had to change the way she did business, which her partner had already noticed. One of these methods is that her store is now closed 3 days a week, and on weekdays it only accepts a strictly limited number of requests. Pierre praises his friend and expresses the opinion that she accepted a good compromise. Shirabi supports his words and says that after these measures were introduced, the other gardeners left her alone, except for the Imperial ones. The ghost was upset to hear this and asked what the girl had done to displease them so much. The main character replies that people with an inferiority complex do not need a reason to start doing all sorts of nasty things. A memory emerges of how she wanted to open the door for another client, but instead got a rotten egg in the face. She wiped her eyes and looked at the floor where sheets of paper with various offensive expressions were scattered. Shirabi admits that the rotten eggs and hostile leaflets were just the tip of the iceberg until she saw more. Pushing her way through the crowd that was looking at the gardener's damaged property, the girl saw her sign that had been smashed to pieces. She thought it was rather childish to break the sign, but what she saw after that really shocked her. The gardener notices her plants that were brutally killed by her haters. The spirits of the plants could not survive either. This scared Shirabi the most. There were signs of abuse on her plants everywhere, but that wasn't all. The gardener also notices a white powder that has been scattered on the ground. She guesses that it is herbicide, which causes her demonic anger. The girl was so angry that, ignoring the entire crowd, she ran to the store and locked herself in there. Shirabi put up a warning sign in front of the store, but she doesn't think the bullying will stop just because of the sign. Suddenly, the main character sadly says that she should not have opened her store there. In the past, the atrocities of the Imperial gardeners continued, which was the last straw for her. And in one cunning way, she decided to take revenge for all her crippled trees. The girl breaks out of her memories and touches a tree in the Imperial garden, and says that this is her revenge. Pierre, hearing the name of the tree, 6-Day Mock, was surprised, because he had never heard of such a thing before. Shirabi confirms that before she created it, it really did not exist. Suddenly, the gardener says that this tree is poisonous, after which Pierre scolds her for touching it anyway. But the girl reassures him that nothing will happen from touching this tree, and the problems will start for anyone who seriously wants to harm the 6-Day Mock. When damaged, the tree secretes a liquid that immediately causes its offender to vomit violently. Shirabi also adds that after poisoning, a person's temperature will rise, so he will suffer for another 6 days. Thus, the main character paid for all the atrocities of the Imperial gardeners. Having heard the consequences of poisoning, Pierre guesses where the name Six-Day Mock came from. The gardener says that even when the inspection from the Imperial Palace came to her, they could not accuse her of anything. And then Shirabi filed a complaint against the Imperial gardeners for the damage caused. She recalls that after this incident, they calmed down, but the relationship between them remained strained. The girl imagines the reaction of the gardeners when they found out that she would be organizing the festival. But suddenly, the spirit started talking about the fact that it is not only people that need to be wary of. The girl asks for more details. The elder is aware that the main character has been visiting the Imperial Palace frequently lately. Based on this, he says that in the palace garden, something happened to one tree that the girl was so afraid of. Shirabi is surprised that the condition of the tree created by man has begun to deteriorate.